So welcome to Conversion Rate Optimization. My name is Karen Kaiser. I am the supervisor on the site optimization team, and my background is e-commerce with a focus on user experience and web experience.
And my name is Aaron Bart, and I head up the creative services team here at iProspect. My background is in information design, and I spent about 10 years in brand advertising, doing creative development, design strategy, before coming over to iProspect and doing more of the performance and analytics-oriented work we're doing today. So today's Insight Lab is conversion rate optimization, and we're going to look at, for me, CRO in a lot of ways is, oriented toward design, right? How can we design better microsites for our, landing pages for our campaigns? How can we design better e-commerce sites to make sure that we're converting our traffic, our incoming traffic, right? So in a lot of ways, the challenge that CRO addresses is the one of, how can we as marketers ensure that every single person coming to our site, coming to our campaign landing pages, are going to take the action that we want, right? Whether that's making a purchase, filling out a form, or interacting with certain page content. So in this Insight Lab, we're going to take a look at, what is CRO? Right? How do we do it effectively here at iProspect? And we'll look at a couple of case studies or examples to see it in action. Okay, so before we dive into the content here, let's just take a step back and think about our own campaigns, our own revenue streams, and what would even a modest 10% lift in conversion rate mean for your bottom line, right, for your revenue? Think about that as we walk through this presentation. So let's start with a fun, easy example here. Okay, I'm not going to tell you much about these two pages, but these are two landing pages we ran a while back for one of our clients. How many people here think that the page on the left, page A, performed better? Okay, and how many people think page B performed better?
So it's the same every time. This is so interesting.
Okay, that's a little bit of a trick question. The reality is that, page A performed better in the UK and page B performed best in the US. Okay, what we did is we ran a series of concurrent A, B, and multivariate tests on page elements like hero image, call to action, messaging. And in the UK, we saw a 46% lift in conversion rate after that series of tests, and we netted out with the design and content you see here on the left. And in the US, we netted out with the page on the right, and we saw about a 30% lift in conversion rate. Okay, but the takeaway here is, we wouldn't have known any of that, and more importantly, we wouldn't have recognized any of the conversion rate lift or associated revenue lift had we not done any testing on our live campaign traffic.
So Aaron's shown you some pretty interesting results. I mean, pretty impressive results, actually. But I think we should take a step back and walk through the process by which we get to these results. We start by identifying, creating, testing, and then we get these results. So in the identify phase, we're actually doing a lot of user research, getting a lot of analytics data so that we can drive our design. So that could be a systems design, it could be a landing page design or a web experience. And then we want to validate our ideas, so we test, and then we get results. And these are really users voting on what makes the most sense and what's most relevant to them. So identifying. The problem that we all have, every single one of us in this room, is that we are not our user. So you may be a power user on your website, but your user is not. So we have to fix this by doing a lot of user research. You may remember from yesterday, observing your users in the wild is in fact the best way to get this information because they'll give you feedback, but just watching how they interact with your system is the best way. We can get that from analytics data. We can get that from user session recordings, so they don't realize they're being recorded, but we can watch how they're interacting. And then we can also do A/B testing, because really we're giving them two options, and they are voting on which one makes the most sense for them. There's also a lab setting that we can do user research. So Sam Houston mentioned yesterday that we do CCS surveys. And that's really great because we're asking thousands of people to give us insight on what they do, what their behaviors are, what their preferences are. And that's on a grand scale. But we can do little things like first click tests. So Jeremy, I might give you a wireframe and ask you to perform a task, and then I ask you to click somewhere. Click wherever you think you should start. And so that's a first click test, and an aggregate of those results will tell us where we should put that add to cart button. Paul, I might give you an image and you have to tell me, I'm going to show it to you for 5 seconds, and you tell me what the first 2 or 3 things that you notice are. And that's a first impression test, which is really helpful because that's about how much patience people have for your website. Then we have card sorting. So Leia, I will give you a list of categories, a list of topics, and then I would ask you to sort them and categorize them in a way that makes the most sense for you. And that's really helpful for navigation because then I understand how you look for information, how you look for product, and it's also great for information architecture. And then I think this is the fun one, user testing. So user testing is great. Paul, I would give you a list of tasks to perform on a site, and it might be our site, it might be a competitor's site, and then we just watch. So we watch how you interact, how you try to complete that task, and then we also hear your feedback. So I want to show you a clip of a user testing video that we did for one of our retail clients. So just setting this up, this lady is clearly the target audience for this retailer, and she's very excited about being involved. And she's going through, and then she just starts to get really frustrated, and then it just really falls apart for her.
So what kind of style geometric shag solid striped dirt? I don't know what that means. Okay, so this isn't really helping me. So fine, let's just go back to by size. And I'm just going to choose 6 by 9. Okay, so there were some numbers there. I don't get that because I chose the 6 by 9s and it's 80 items. Okay, so at this point, oh, so I can't refine it further by price? I don't know. I'm not enjoying the shopping experience. I really like to have very clear, easy to use filtering options, and these are not proving to be so, in my opinion.
Very frustrating. So the first thing that I notice is she doesn't understand what a Dury rug is. So had we done something like card sorting, that topic might have been put in the I don't know where this goes pile. She also misses a lot of the refinements that she's looking for. So there actually is a price refinement available to her, but it's just not obvious. So she completely misses it. So this is great feedback. We would never have gotten this without user testing, but we also have to balance this with what actually happens on the site. So I tend to trust this woman because she was so happy at first and then she just got very frustrated. But we do have to look at where she struggles and where we see the struggles in analytics. And then those are the pain points that our users have on our site.
Right, and that's pretty compelling feedback. Okay. So in our Intel example, we did a lot of the same type of user research. And since this was a paid search campaign, we also looked at our keyword data. We looked at ad copy performance data to see what was our target audience clicking on, what are they searching on. We also did a persona analysis. So we identified 3 different general user types. Power users, in this case for Ultrabooks, power users, gamers, and students. And we took all of that information, and that's what drove our conversion strategy in the create phase of CRO.
Right. So there are all of these clues, and they're giving it to us. They're telling us what they want and what they need from us, and we're able to take this information and create a content strategy, a conversion strategy, create the content that they're looking for, the layout that they're looking for, and this really drives our testing plan.
Mm-hmm. Right, so we'll net out with experiences, actual designs that are going to most resonate with the different target audiences. So in the Intel example, we did just that, right? So we identified these 3 personas, and we actually designed 3 different unique landing page experiences to align with each of these personas. So for example, the product imagery, the hero imagery, the product descriptions that we chose for the power user segment would be very different from the content that we chose for the student segment.
So now we have all of these ideas and we're ready to start testing. So the nice thing is there are testing tools for every level of complexity. You may need a lot of features and there are very sophisticated tools. There's also very basic tools that are still very effective, which basically get you to the point of A/B testing. So really the lesson here is that everybody in this room should be doing A/B testing in one way or another. So we have our testing platform. Now we have to figure out, is it an A/B test, is it a multivariate test? And this is really based on the design that we've created. And we can also target our users. So is it returning traffic? Is it new traffic? Is it campaign traffic? Does this user have a cookie value set? So we know that they've been to the site before, they've seen a particular piece of content. So let's target them with our A/B test.
Right. The nice thing is, there are lots of different platforms out there now for testing. We have a lot of experience with all of them. So if you're interested in engaging and in learning more about it, we can actually help walk you through, which platform is going to be right for your types of campaigns. Are there people in here doing this kind of testing or using any of these platforms right now? What are you using?
iProspect.
Okay.
Yes. So not everybody is doing A/B testing, apparently.
Okay. So in our Intel example, this is exactly what we did, right? So using the Ion platform in this case, we set up an A/B test initially to validate our new design. And then after that ran a couple of weeks, we actually saw that our new microsite design performed better. And then we set up a series of tests on things like call to action language, headline, core messaging, hero image, product shots, and so forth to further iterate on design and drive up performance. Okay, so the next stage of the CRO process is results. Okay, so we get back our results data from our platform, and we'll see, did we move the needle? Okay, by how much, and how significant were our results, right? Can we take that creative learning and either roll it out on another landing page or somewhere else in our digital ecosystem? And then we'll also line up our conversion rate data with, if it's if we have back-end purchase data, we'll see, did we move the needle on revenue KPIs? Okay, if it's a lead gen campaign, do we have any CRM data that we can look at to see if our on-page conversion rate lift actually impacted our cost per lead? Did we drive net new leads, and so forth? And then finally, we take our creative learnings and we might actually see something that happened in a test, and that might help drive new test ideation. So the results in the Intel case were actually pretty impressive. So we got back our landing page test data from the Ion platform, and we saw that we actually moved the needle in terms of conversion rate. But then we lined that up with our campaign data, and we actually saw that there were spikes in campaign performance at the time periods that we were doing our testing. And then in this case, I think most importantly, we were able to tie that back in with purchase data that we got from Lenovo, our featured OEM in this case. So we did see spikes in average order value, revenue per visitor, and we saw a 20% lift in return on ad spend for Lenovo. Okay, so let's go back to that initial question, right? So, think about your own campaigns. What would even a modest 10% lift in conversion rate mean for your revenue, right? And what's the cost of doing nothing?
Does anybody actually want to answer this question? Nobody ever seems to, but I want to ask anyways. Nope. Okay.
All right, thank you guys. Any questions? Diana.
Can you give us a sense as to the timeline after you actually test before you then start to operationalize in the long term, what the results are?
It's a good question. I mean, it depends on what the result of the test was. So you're saying once you have a result, what do you then do with that, and how do you internalize that?
It's actually more like what's the testing timeline before you then garner the results?
Oh, okay.
Got it.
So that depends on a couple of things. So usually you need enough traffic volume until you get to a conclusion, right? So the platform will actually tell you to get to, say, a 90% confidence interval, right? With 90% confidence that page A performed better than page B, you need 50,000 visitors or 60,000 visitors. It also depends on the difference between how page A and page B performed. So if you've got a test that's running pretty flat, so if you're testing something that's not very different, it's going to take a much longer time to get to a conclusion than if you make a dramatic change and one page performs much better than the other. This interval is going to give you results in a much shorter time frame.
Yeah.
Are you typically looking at the testing in terms of how do I increase the overall conversion rate, or is there a lot of testing around customization depending on the source of the traffic coming to the site, or if you can talk a little bit about how that might work together?
All of those things, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how we define our KPIs. So the first thing we do before we even start testing is, what does success mean? So we'll define success. Is that a click on a purchase, call to action button? Is that a revenue KPI? So first we'll define what that is. And then we'll lay out, in a roadmap for testing, what that's going to look like.
I think you're also asking about personalization based on the traffic, right? So where did I come from, or what keyword did I enter the site on? And I think that is a lot of that headline messaging that we can test based on what your search term was, and what was the ad copy that you were served for that search term, and does that actually match up with the landing page that we're driving you to? And should we test the alignment of the ad copy to that page?
Right.
Now, it's a little trickier when you don't have that search data. And there is a lot of front-end work that has to happen with analytics. So you, as a customer or a client, need to make sure that you have your segments defined in analytics, and there's some trigger so that you know that this person coming in is a returning purchaser, right? And so you might treat them differently. And so if there is some parameter that you can target when you're running these tests, then yes, absolutely, you can do that. But you also have to know what you should be testing. So if I'm a returning visitor and I've purchased before, do I then care more about new arrivals at this point? Or do I really want to see more content about the brand? I probably care more about new arrivals because I'm ready to buy. I already know who you are. But if you're a new visitor, then you may say, I need to introduce you to the brand first before you make a decision, knowing that that is going to take you a little longer to get to that purchase, but they're much more comfortable with you at that point. And so you may be able to see the people that are new visitors that we've tested, introduction copy or introductory content
Awareness
tend
content,
to exactly they tend to convert faster because they don't have to hunt and peck for that information, and they know what you're all about. I hope that answers the question. Yes.
So a couple of questions. So this room might not be representative of your client base, but across the client base, what sort of engagement is there in CRO? If there are, what sort of barriers are there for clients in terms of not considering and not sort of undertaking these sorts of efforts? And second question, are you, because we've had a lot of discussion around mobile, are you also thinking about mobile experience and optimization on
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to your second question first, recently we're seeing a lot more testing in mobile. We're seeing a lot of e-commerce and B2B sites too redesigning for responsive so that they'll appear and function well in smartphones, mobile devices, and the platforms that we showed you, they're able to do testing on any platform, on any device type. We're actually seeing a lot more need for testing for mobile and tablet. Your first question: what are the barriers to clients actually engaging? It's a really good question because it's something we struggle with. We encourage folks to do this. I think it's understanding the value proposition for them. So, understanding what would an investment in CRO with us, what's the upside of that? And sometimes it's just getting them to actually see what that could look like. Where's that budget going to come from? So if they've got a fixed, say paid media budget, are they going to have to carve out some budget for CRO from that? Where's that going to come from? So sometimes that's the barrier. And then it could be also internal teams. It can get quite political with giving access to the creative for a site to an outside team. We haven't. My team is very good at at creative and analytics and everything that a creative agency would do. And we're also working with the teams that are managing the campaign. So, we have to communicate to our prospects or potential clients for CRO that, you know, we're going to tread lightly. We're going to, on your creative, we're going to be brand compliant. We're going to do everything to make, you know, the sites that we design, the tests that we do, that they're going to be consistent with your site look and feel, with your, you know, your internal brand teams are going to be okay with everything that we're doing. So it could be, you know, a lot of politics just to get them to, you know, let go a little bit of the creative to let us do this kind of testing.
I think also, sorry, I feel like there's a little bit that wasn't answered there, no offense, Aaron, but I do think that there's a B2B and then there's a retail client, right? And is that your question too, about what is the barrier to entry for an e-commerce? Sure. I do think that B2B is much easier to do because there is a lot of paid landing pages, so off-site landing pages that we can test with, whereas with e-commerce, of course, every single page is a landing page, and there's a multi-page experience. So the tests that we would run for e-commerce clients have to be much more complex. So we have to consider not just that we're asking them for personal information, but we're asking them for their money. So what are the things that we need to do, and how can we test to make sure that we make them comfortable enough to give us our money, or their money? So I don't feel like I've quite answered, but it is more complex for retail, but it's not it's not something that's impossible. I mean, e-commerce clients are testing all the time. I think the platforms that you have to test with, based on what you want to test, if it's a multi-page experience, do have to be more complicated and sophisticated.
Thank you.
Sure.
What if your site is somewhat inflexible and what can be changed, like in terms of the image or the module?
So this is great. Testing platforms don't rely on your development queue at all. So it's basically, a lot of the testing platforms that we use require a line of JavaScript, and then it's now this layer on top of your site. So you don't actually change anything on the site itself. You're essentially creating a different experience without having to change anything. So you could actually have a completely custom page that looks nothing like your site. I don't know that we should make a site that does, or a page that doesn't look quite like your site, but you know what I mean? Like you can actually, the modules don't come into play at that point.
Right. So the platforms allow you to make all of those changes pretty easily. Yep. And then, you know, you probably have to get sign off internally to be making those kinds of creative changes. So a lot of times, you know, if there's difficulty in getting that kind of approval, the platform, you know, you can just say, we're not actually making any change to the site. We're just running a small test on the platform, and only a small group of people are going to actually see that variation via the platform. Yeah.
So of those platforms and measurement tools, what is the best one for measuring for mobile? I mean, I'm in a space where people are likely researching on their mobile phones. I mean, that's what Amazon's telling us, so it's got to be the same way for us. How do we make our experience better that way, and what's sort of the best tools? Because I mean, I can only in my career only think of desktop examples. So,
well, the tools, all of the tools that we showed you can set up mobile tests. So we can do that with all these platforms. The platforms are tools. They're measurement devices. So yeah, they all pretty much do the same thing to one degree or another. What's going to move the needle is, you know, having folks who are experienced designers who understand, you know, how to align target audience intent with user experience. So with mobile, you know, some of the things that our team has come up with, you know, to improve performance, you know, those kinds of learnings we'll bring to the process. But really, I think any platform can do the same thing there for
What's
mobile.
your website?
Sonos.com.
Okay, so you're getting a lot of mobile traffic?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because people are researching?
Yeah.
Is it tablet?
Sonos tablet converts really well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's an audience bias.
Yeah.
I think that if you can afford a tablet, you can afford a $200 connected speaker.
$99 tablets.
What I'm saying,
Yes.
like, you look at I would almost run almost all tablet if I could for my mobile, but there's just not
Right.
even a pool. But we're in the process of starting to look at attacking some questions on technology, and those are like heavily mobile keywords.
Yep.
That are heavily mobile, we are essentially a mobile company as well, because you have to have an app for things to work. You have to have a phone. So we're just looking at it that way. And we have a huge UX team that does stuff for have one UX person on the website. So it's one of those deals where like we're trying to do our own thing and to start with, and I think you said that you may have helped us a little, but you know, I'm trying to go back and say, here's what we need to be doing with the mobile landing page versus the desktop landing page. Here, you know, and here's why, and here's, you know, it needs to be shortened up, and this needs to be a little bit different, even just from the start.
How is your conversion rate? So we're in a safe room. How is your conversion rate with mobile, just phone?
Oh boy,
Is it?
it's real bad.
Okay.
I mean, it's not. I'm not surprised, but it is not great.
Do you think that they are looking for locations that might carry Sonos?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I think there was one thing is like people do like to call us.
Okay.
We don't have a whole lot of that on the site, which is something that I just was today. I was like, oh my god, are we gonna do this? But it's I mean, most of it goes through Best Buy. I mean, you walk into a Best Buy and buy it.
So I think in that case, I mean, a call is a conversion at that point. So you're designing, the platform that you're using will be able to provide that.
I'm thinking further up though.
Yeah,
I'm just
okay.
interaction, like people sticking, learning
Yeah.
about us as a company. We're not even close to where we want to be, so we need to educate. And so like we need like educational metrics and things like that where we're okay spending money to get traffic that doesn't just like give us $1 back right
Yep.
away.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think like it almost seems like there are some technical barriers too for such a thing, because when you use responsive design, you're not more or less changing the user experience from a content perspective. You're just changing the
Right,
size and
rearranging.
resolution.
And so I think testing also what works best and keeps them on the site. So what content should we put at the top when you're resizing, and how long do they stay after you've done that? I think that would be a really interesting test.
We can definitely help you. Were you in that call a couple of weeks ago? So talk to Paul. I think
You
we
have
can,
our number.
Yeah.
And the stuff you sent us was great.
Okay.
Like, here you go. Like, let's get further now.